It's a dead end. What do we do now? Sokka turned to look at Aang and Katara. We have to think of something and fast, before those bloodthirsty pirates catch us. Oh man, if only I still had my glider, I could fly us out of here. Aang looked at the fans in his hands disappointedly. That won't happen with these things. It's not your fault, Katara consoled the young monk. You probably wouldn't be able to carry the three of us anyway. Arr, a ferocious sound echoed from behind the corner. Here they come! Sokka gulped but took his fighting stance. No matter what Katara says, it's sort of my fault, Aang thought. I'm the Avatar. If I can't even save my friends, how can I save the world? Catch those thieving otter snakes! A pirate yelled. Aang didn't want to hurt anyone, but he had to protect his friends. He wasn't a fully realized Avatar yet, but he was an airbending prodigy. Sokka used his boomerang to take out the lead pirate when they rounded the corner. Katara used the water in her water skin to create a slippery floor, which made a few more tumble down. Aang blew the rest out of the way with his fans. We have to go back this way. Follow me. Team Avatar was almost past their enemies when one of the pirates took a handful of smoke bombs. The thick smoke made it hard for Aang to see where he was going. He could only hope the pirates were just as confused. Sokka! Katara! Aang called out. I'm somewhere, Sokka called back and added, Let's split up and rendezvous where we left Appa. We could meet at the watchtower, Katara suggested. It's much closer. Sure, but I'm willing to bet my boomerang the pirates just heard that too. Aang looked around in the smoke, still not seeing far. Sokka was right. We'll meet up back at Appa. Aang decided the best way he could protect his friends was by attracting as much attention as possible on himself. The air nomad did a swirling air-bending kata to clear off the smoke around him, revealing his location to everyone nearby. As Aang had hoped, that caused most of the pirates to follow him as he took them on a wild chase around town. Sokka had his arms stretched out in front of him as he stumbled forward. He managed to get through most of the smoke, and could now see a few meters ahead of him. Making the most of his newly gained sight, Sokka started running. He got to the end of the street and realized he was heading back toward the docks. Well, that's not where I want to go. Sokka turned around to go the opposite direction, but before he had time to know what hit him, the world tilted sideways and his vision went black. Iroh had spent the entire morning and most of the afternoon searching the village and the nearby moors for Zuko. Iroh had found one interesting thing on the grassy hills, but it raised more questions than it answered. A major spiritual happening had taken place not far from the village. Of this, Iroh was sure. His trip to the spirit world nearly 6 years ago had opened his senses to be keener on spiritual happenings, so keen that it was sometimes a bit of an inconvenience. So keen that it was sometimes an inconvenience when a passing spirit caught Iroh's attention, when his focus really should have been on the present. This time, I was grateful for his insight on spiritual matters, though. Any clues of Zuko's whereabouts, even vague ones, were a welcome sight at this point. Iroh was fairly certain he had not sensed a spiritual presence when they had first arrived this morning. There was a possibility he had simply overlooked it, but Iroh doubted that. The spiritual activities were recent, and Iroh presumed there was a very good chance they were connected to his nephew's sudden disappearance. Zuko, where are you? Iroh couldn't shake off the feeling that all this was connected to the spirit encounter Zuko had at the Dragon Shrine. Zuko had been awfully quiet after his meeting with the spirit, but Uncle had dismissed it as the kind of quiet that was caused by the awe every man felt after meeting a spirit for the first time. Iroh hadn't thought Zuko withheld information from him. Not before now. What was the exact deal Zuko made with the spirit? I really should have asked for more details. Iroh felt tired when he re-entered the town. He would never give up on the young man, and he also knew it was time to move out. Zuko wasn't coming back to this place. Their ostrich horses were still parked outside the smithy. Ouch. Sokka's head ached. It was a jamming kind of pain that wouldn't let him rest. He opened his eyes, but had to blink a few times to get a sense of his surroundings. Sokka was laying on a blanket on top of a haystack. He was in a small room, or quite possibly a tent. How did I get here? Suddenly, Sokka's eyes went wide. Oh no, I'm being held captive by pirates. I've got to think of something and fast. Sokka tried to feel around him for anything that could be used as a weapon. To his great surprise, the pirates had left all of his stuff, boomerang and machete included, next to the blanket. Okay, not very bright pirates. Sokka gathered his things quietly. He got to his feet, but had to pause for a while since the world started tilting again. Sokka touched his forehead to feel for his injuries, only to find that someone had already wrapped a bandage around it. Feeling his every step carefully, Sokka began to make his way toward a glint of light that came from under the cloth working as a door. Sokka was only halfway to the door when he heard sounds. The Water Tribe boy stopped moving and listened intently, picking up more words of the loud conversation as it came closer. Could get potentially important information out of the prisoner. An unfamiliar man's voice finished. I'll tell them nothing, Sokka decided. To Sokka's surprise, the next speaker was a woman. Odd. Sokka didn't recall seeing any woman among the pirates. It's not our policy to take prisoners, and you know it. We don't have the manpower or the facility for it. It is a bad idea. Also, I have a difficult time understanding why you picked this prisoner in particular. We have a reason to believe the prisoner has valuable information on local Fire Nation outpost. The man defended his case. No, I don't. Sokka wondered what the pirates would do with that sort of information anyway. No, we don't. The woman responds and added, Do you really think I don't see right through you? That I can't guess why you picked her out of all of them? That has nothing to do with... The man tried to answer, but was interrupted. We both know she wasn't taken prisoner for information gathering. She isn't even an officer. The woman shouted back. Suddenly, the piece of cloth that marked the door was pulled aside. And you, Illa said and pointed her finger at Sokka. You're not supposed to be out of bed yet. For a moment, all Sokka could do was blink. Now he officially had no idea what was going on. I've been kidnapped by the Earth Kingdom militia, he hazarded a guess. Idla and the older man Sokka didn't know stared at him for a while before the man corrected him. No, you've been saved by the Earth Kingdom militia. Sokka looked puzzled. I've been... what? Ilya, the man addressed the young woman, see to it that our guest has everything he needs, and on our earlier topic, I don't want to hear another word of it. I'm in charge of this camp, and you do well to remember that. The man walked away. I'm so confused, Sokka confessed. Ilya glanced at him before rolling her eyes and answering. We saw a bunch of thugs carrying you around. They said you'd stolen from them. Did you? What? Did we steal from the pirates? No! We didn't think so either, Ilya said. And despite what your best buddy the Avatar thinks of militia, we are a pretty decent bunch. So we fought the pirates until it wasn't worth it for them to keep you as prisoner. Then we brought you to our camp. Illa crossed her arms, looking defensive. We actually went through quite a bit of trouble to save your sorry ass, so a little gratitude wouldn't hurt. And when I tell you you shouldn't be out of bed, you really should be back in bed. Do I have to make you? I can't stay here, Sokka realized. I gotta find my friends and make sure they're okay. Are Aang and Katara here? Illa shook her head. We just found you. We saw no signs of the Avatar, or your sister. Man, they must be so worried. How long have I been out? Sokka rubbed his bandaged head. Almost the whole day, Illa answered, looking a bit more sympathetic. We were starting to get a bit worried too. You lost some blood from the cut on your forehead before we got a chance to bandage it. The whole day? Oh no, the Katara and Aang are super worried. They'll think I've been caught by the pirates. You were caught by the pirates, Illa pointed out. Look, I understand your concern, but there's nothing you can do about it now. You should lay down and rest. Nah, I'm fine, Sokka said, and took a step forward to prove his point. And if only the world would hold still. Ella was next to him, supporting him with her body. She guided Sokka back to the makeshift bunk in the back of the tent. Look, Ella began, How about I tell you our scouts that if they run into the Avatar, they'll let him know you're okay and at our camp. How does that sound? It sounds pretty good. Sokka couldn't think of a better solution. Illa told Sokka to lay still while she went to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a scout. She returned soon with a bowl of soup in hand. Sokka accepted more than gladly. He was starving. What is this place anyway? Sokka asked to get the conversation going again. A temporary camp. We're heading north, but I can't tell you where we're going or why. I can tell you that we are some distance from the port we found you at. Okay, Sokka mumbled while sipping at the last of his soup. I should probably thank you guys for saving me. Ada waved her hand and dismissed the topic. Truth be told, we've had trouble with those pirates before. We barely need an excuse to pick a fight with them. I'm not surprised, Sokka commented. I mean, they attacked me and my friends without any provocation. I should think they would have made a lot of enemies with that kind of behavior. Don't know about that, though you got lucky we happened to be in town. The girl sighed, looking suddenly a bit sheepish. And that we chose to rescue you. I mean, it did take some convincing to get the others to rescue a friend of the Avatar, after he didn't give us his support. Sokka frowned at that. Look, we don't exactly part as best friends, so why did you save me? Ila shrugged. Even if the Avatar doesn't like the militia, he's still the best chance our kingdom has to win the war. Or at least that's what I told the boys. So it's you I owe? Sokka guessed. Illa actually blushed for a moment, shaking her head. Her voice was still solid. Hardly, I didn't do it for you. It was the right thing to do, that's all. Wait a second. Sokka's mind was processing what he learned so far. Earlier I overheard you talking about a prisoner. If that isn't me, then who? Are you always this paranoid? Illa rolled her eyes. Well, we weren't talking about you, obviously. We've got another prisoner, a Fire Nation soldier. Reading her face, Sokka could tell this bothered her. I thought you guys weren't trying to pick a fight with the Fire Nation. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Fighting them is kind of unavoidable in our line of work. Truth be told, I don't think all of us even want to avoid it, Illa said angrily. Everyone hates the Fire Nation, Sokka commented, so why do you have a problem with the militia fighting them? I don't, the young woman defended herself. I hate the Fire Nation too, it's just... Too much hatred sometimes makes people lose sight of what fights are worth fighting. They throw away their principles for retribution, and without principles, we really are the ragtag bunch of thugs almost everyone already thinks we are. Sokka nodded. He thought he understood that. You fear the militia attracts the wrong kind of people, the kind that would rather destroy the Fire Nation stuff than build schools? Exactly. I mean, I believe in the militia. I really do. It's just sometimes, like today, for example, I'm not even sure we know what we're fighting for anymore. Illa's face was calm, but her eyes were burning with some emotion. Sokka couldn't put his finger on. There's something she's not telling me, something important. Illa started fiddle with her braid, nervous. Illa's hair was shorter than Sokka had remembered. On their earlier encounter, she wore it in a bun, not a braid. It reached almost to her waist. The girl was wearing a loose, dark tunic with a wide belt around the waist. Under the tunic, she wore a wide-sleeved shirt and loose trousers. No shoes, as was traditional for earthbenders. All in all, Illa's appearance was a traditional Earth Kingdom. It was hard to guess this young woman was a freedom fighter, which was probably the whole point. The only slightly noticeable thing about Illa's appearance was that she had expensive-looking jade bracelets on both wrists. Maybe a gift or family jewels. The silence stretched on, making Sokka feel uneasy. So, this prisoner you have, do I hear someone say it's a she? Yes, was Illa's only answer. She still looked gloomy. And you have a problem with that? Sokka guessed. I have a problem with it because I've been taught that it's wrong to treat anyone, even our enemies, with unnecessary cruelty, she answered. One look at Sokka's face told her he wasn't following her line of thinking. So Illa began to explain. In Earth Kingdom, women are allowed to join the army. Fighting isn't considered feminine. The Water Tribe also thinks it's a man's job to fight, Sokka told her, though he made sure to sound non-judgmental about it. Illa nodded and went on. The Fire Nation has female soldiers, but because the concept of women fighting is bizarre to our culture, most of our soldiers don't get it. Hey, but what about you? You're woman fighting, Sokka pointed out. Yes, I am. The militia enlists women to compensate for the shortage of able-bodied young men. We need every bender who's willing to fight, and hasn't already joined the army, which pretty much means women. But even the militia won't recruit married women or mothers, and we're not assigned to the fronts, Illa clarified. Most Earth Kingdom soldiers, militia and army alike, don't see the enemy's female soldiers as soldiers at all. They see them as something that shouldn't be, something evil. Illa went on, uneasy. Soldiers fight because they have their orders, but since women aren't soldiers, they must be doing it because they're evil and enjoy hurting people. Or soldiers see them as something inhuman and something they treat inhumanely. Illa looked disgusted for a moment before continuing. I mostly work as a lookout, and I have never been to the fronts. I've never witnessed most of the horrible things the Fire Nation has done, not in person. This doesn't mean I don't know the evil they are, but I still don't want to stoop to their level. Fighting and killing on the front lines when it's either you or him, that I get. But hurting people when you have them at your mercy? Illa let the sentence go unfinished. Sokka thought back for a moment. His recent visit to Kyoshi Island had opened his eyes to the fact that girls were no worse fighters than men. However, if Sokka hadn't been there, he wasn't sure how he would have taken to hearing the Fire Nation enlisted women. To him, it sounded cowardly-like for them to make their women fight for them. But he could see Illa's point too. You think she's being treated worse than prisoners of war usually are because she's a woman? Illa nodded. But, Sokka had to point out, woman or man, she is a Fire Nation soldier. None of them are exactly innocent, so odds are she's getting what's coming to her. Illa looked furious. It doesn't matter how born and bred evil they might be. It doesn't give us an excuse to go down to their level, and no one deserves to be treated like a thing. Illa was quiet for a moment, not meeting Sokka's gaze. She eventually went on. I'm not even sure everyone from the Fire Nation is evil. I know, blasphemy. Illa rolled her eyes, but there was no humor in her tone. I've seen Fire Nation soldiers do decent things, even good things. Like, remember the first time we met? That one Fire Nation soldier risked his life trying to protect an Earth Kingdom village. It took Sokka a while to realize who Illa was talking about. Hold on. You're not suggesting that Zuko is your moral idol? Because I've met the jerk before, and I've got to break this to you, the guy is nothing but trouble. He didn't do what he did for any noble reason. I can tell you that much. I don't know what his motives were, Illa admitted. Still, he stood up for what was right, even when it meant he had to make a stand against his own people to do it. The way I remember it, you were the one who practically set on the rest of us to stop us from acting, Sokka reminded Illa. Those were my orders, she replied bitterly. So what exactly are you getting at with all this? Illa took a deep breath. I feel like I'm a worse person than this Zuko guy. Worse than some Fire Nation soldiers if I just sit back and do nothing, when I know something evil is about to happen. Illa glanced at Sokka. Her eyes had a weary edge to them, as if she was afraid she had said too much. I should really stop bothering you with my rants and let you get some rest. Illa changed the topic, and before Sokka had time to say anything, she was up and out of the tent. The sun was already setting, and Sokka was nowhere to be seen. This is our fault. This was the only thing Katara could think about. The stupid scroll is not worth this. Katara said at the end of a pier. The moment she and Aang had realized Sokka wasn't coming to the rendezvous point, she confessed to Aang that she'd taken the waterbending scroll. Not knowing what else to do, they returned to the town, ready to take on the pirates and save Sokka. The only problem was that the pirates were no longer there. Aang had told Appa to search the waters for the pirate ship. Katara had stayed behind to search the town in case Sokka hadn't been caught and was hiding somewhere instead. She already searched the place from top to bottom and gone back to their rendezvous point a few times, but so far she found no sign of her brother. Katara had promised herself that she'd be strong, but it was hard to keep the tears at bay. Momo, who had stayed with Katara, climbed on Katara's lap. She petted him absently. If something bad had happened to him, I'll never forgive myself. Hey girl! Someone called from behind. Yes, you there! Katara turned and saw a boy who looked about her age. Are you the one who's looking for that fellow the pirates chased down? The boy asked. Katara was on her feet so quick she dropped Momo. Yes I am. Have you seen him? Do you know where he is? To Katara's irritation, the boy took his time answering. Eventually he said, I may have seen something. Tell me what you know, please. He's my brother. He could be in trouble. Katara pleaded. Oh, he's in trouble, all right. Never a good idea to steal from the pirates, the boy said smugly. Tell me at once. Katara was running out of patience. Sure. What's it worth to you? Worth? He's my brother! I mean, how much you got to give for my trouble? The boy clarified, keeping his calm. He'd probably done this sort of thing before. Katara had just about had it. Tell me right now or I'll make you wish you had. The boy didn't look concerned. And then who's going to tell you anything then, sugar? In this port everything's for sale, which means everything comes with a price. Katara tried to calm herself. She hated this whole port and its unhelpful inhabitants. I have a copper coin. Please? A copper coin. No deal. I have 2 copper coins? But that's really all I have. You can take them or keep information to yourself. I'm sure no one else can buy it from you, Katara bargained. The boy considered that. Throw in that pretty necklace of yours and you got yourself a deal. The boy called forth water from the sea beneath the pier. He threw a wave at the boy, but he dodged and took out a pocket knife. Before Katara could think of another attack, a sudden gust of wind knocked the boy down. Appa swished over Katara's head and Aang jumped down, fans in hand. I'm not going to let you hurt Katara! Katara felt irritated. Even if Aang had better bender than she was, she didn't have to rub it in her face at every turn. I don't need you to save me. I had everything under control. Aang looked shocked, even a bit hurt. I shouldn't have shouted at him. It's not him I'm angry at. Sorry, Aang, Katara said more kindly. Did you find the ship? Aang shook his head and almost looked as miserable as she felt. Katara turned to look at the other boy, who was now sprawled on the pier. Katara called a globe of water to her hand. Now tell me everything you know. Fine, the boy said, his eyes never leaving the globe. I saw the pirates knock the kid out cold. And when I say they hit him, I mean they really took a swing at him. His head was bleeding and all. Oh no, Katara exclaimed, already seeing all the worst possible scenarios in her head. The pirates were dragging the kid back to their ship, but then these militia people showed up and started to pick a fight. Militia? Aang asked and looked at Katara. Yeah, militia. Bunch of them. And one of them said she knew the boy and they argued with the pirates about it. And then they fought. The militia fought the pirates? Then what? Katara asked, stunned. The militia won, sort of. They told the pirates to get lost. What about Sokka? Who got Sokka? Katara insisted to know. Not sure. Katara lifted the water globe. No, seriously, I'm not sure. It wasn't safe to be standing right next to a battle, but I think the militia took him. That's all I know. Katara and Aang looked at each other. You think the militia rescued him? Aang asked from Katara. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Ursa was sitting by a window waiting for any sign of Zuko or Iroh's return. She didn't like the way their meeting had ended. So many things I should have said, so many things I should have done. When the sun was already setting, Iroh finally came back. Ursa walked out into the yard to meet him. Iroh? She said to catch his attention. Ursa noticed Zuko wasn't with his uncle. She could guess why. He doesn't want to see me again. Iroh took a deep breath and turned to look at Ursa. He looked tired. I don't know where Zuko is. What? What do you mean? Ursa was now worried too. It was unlike Zuko to run away without telling anyone where he was going. At least it had been unlike Zuko, she'd once known. He hasn't returned here, I take it? Iroh sighed to himself, clearly not having expected Zuko to have done so. He's hurt, isn't he? Ursa had to ask. Iroh took another deep breath before answering. Emotionally? Undoubtedly. Physically? I don't know. Zuko hasn't had it easy these past few years. Far from it. You were hard on him. I know, Ursa said. But you must see that it's impossible for him to stay here. Even so, Zuko is your son. Iroh looked Ursa in the eye. He needs you, just like all your children do. I know, Ursa repeated shortly. After her banishment, Ursa hadn't expected to ever see Zuko or Zula again. The pain of having to leave them behind had almost been unbearable, and there had been no other way. Ozai would never allowed her to take the children with her. He would have hunted them down to the edge of the earth. Also, the life of a fugitive was no life for a young child. She wanted to believe that she made the right decision that night, but it had been a long time since she had been sure. I often told myself that there was no other way, that my children were better off raised in a palace. What after happened to Zuko? I wonder if I abandoned my children into the hands of a monster. Ursa knew it was risky for her to criticize Ozai this openly to her brother, without knowing where Iroh stood in the matter. Well, everything about today's meeting was risky. I should thank the spirits it's only Zuko and Iroh who found me this time. I don't know my niece as well as I should, but Zuko I know, Iroh stated evenly. He's a wonderful young man. He's suffered more than anyone his age should have, and he's still struggling to find his way. But even after all this happened, he hasn't grown cold or cruel. I'm glad he has you to look after him, Ursa said earnestly. I will always look after Zuko, but having an uncle around is not the same as having your parents care for you. Ursa nodded. She still felt terrible, but she couldn't afford to wallow in self-pity. She had to be strong for her family. When you find Zuko, please tell him that I never stopped loving him. Iroh had untied the two ostrich horses and was now preparing to leave. I can tell him that, but it's one thing to say you love someone, another thing to act accordingly. Ursa didn't remember Iroh being this cold, but since she probably deserved the criticism, she merely nodded. I have searched around the village thoroughly, and I seriously doubt Zuko is still here. There is no point for me to stay longer, so I'll return to our ship. If Zuko comes back here, please tell him where I went. I will, Ursa promised, and added, You don't think he's coming back here, do you? No, I don't, Iroh stated. Goodbye, Lady Ursa. Your secret is safe with me. I wish the best for you and your family. Iroh's manners never failed him, it seemed. Goodbye, Iroh. I'm going to regret this. The militia camp was built next to cliffside to keep it out of sight of potential intruders. Right now, Ella was sneaking around the campsite, keeping to the tree line. She could hear people sleeping inside the tents, and tried to move quietly so not to wake up anyone. Technically, she had every right to be walking here, but Ella didn't want to run into anyone. I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm such a traitor. Despite her doubts, Ella's mind was made up. I'm going to aid the Fire Nation, my family would disown me if they hadn't already done it, and they hate me for this. Ella's whole body shook with nervousness, but she tried to focus. By concentrating on her bending, she could roughly tell if there were anyone walking near her location. So far, there was no one. Ella had counted on Shin to put an end to the whole prisoner fiasco when he returned from his scouting trip earlier this evening, but he hadn't. Shin had pulled Ella aside and told her that the matter wasn't worth fighting over. He knows it's wrong with what they're planning to do to her, and he won't lift a finger to stop it. This is not the man I left everything for, Ella thought angrily. The earthbender realized she was being followed. Someone was closing in on her, someone wearing soft leather boots, by the sound of them. Ella stopped for a while, letting her follower catch up, and Sokka emerged from the tree line. Ella had composed herself, not to conveniently stare him down. "Whoa," Sokka exclaimed. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting." Ella accused Sokka, as if it was he who'd been caught up to no good. "I just came to say that you shouldn't do this," Sokka whispered. "Do what?" Ella asked a bit too quickly. Sokka sighed. "Look, I get it that you think you should do something about the Fire Nation prisoner, but I'm telling you, it's not a good idea." "Okay, so he figured it out." "I know," Ella sighed, "but I'm not just going to sit back and let them hurt or maybe even kill her." "They're going to kill her?" Sokka asked, surprised. "For what?" "On the record, because she's a Fire Nation spy. Off the record, because it's good for morale. Apparently, we here in the militia are not so righteous that we don't need actual reasons to start executing people." The Water Tribe boy gaped at Illa before answering. "Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe you do have a point. I mean, Fire Nation is evil and all, but it still isn't right to pin all their crimes on one woman just because she's conveniently available. I guess I'm just going to have to come with you." "What? Absolutely not!" Ella hissed. "It's my stupid plan, and I alone will go down for it. After I've ranted about this to anyone who'd stand still long enough to hear me out, it's really unlikely people won't figure out it was me who broke her out, but there's no need for you to get in trouble for all this." "Yeah, but I do owe you, and I'm not going to let you do this alone. So what's the plan?" "If you do this, all the militia will become not just your enemy, but the Avatars as well." Illa tried to reason with the boy. Sokka thought that over for a moment, but eventually replied, "I'm sure Aang will forgive me for getting some dirt on his reputation. If he was here, he'd be right with you on this whole 'let's not kill anyone' thing. He wouldn't hurt the Fire Lord if there was a way out of it. So I'm coming along whether you like it or not. By the way, I'm already in much better condition. Thank you very much. I can help." Illa felt guilty for getting Sokka into trouble, but she was also relieved by the boy's offer. While playing this little stunt, she began to question her own sanity. It was reassuring to hear she wasn't the only one who thought the situation was rotten. "Fine, but you have to do exactly as I tell you." Sokka nodded and smiled. "So, the plan?" They continued toward the partially natural cave, partially bending-made building where the prisoner was being held. Eri felt cold. She didn't usually envy benders, and she sure as hell didn't think they were better warriors than non-benders were, but in a situation like this, firebending would have come in real handy. Era's hands and legs were tied with iron chains, so bending wouldn't have gotten her out of the situation entirely, but at the very least she could have kept herself warm. Eri was shivering, and not just because it was cold in the crude, rocky structure her captors had imprisoned her in. She lost quite a bit of blood in the battle, and after. Years of elite training had taught her how to stay calm, rational, and in control under battle circumstances. Her training had enabled her to appear quiet and defiant throughout the ordeal of being taken prisoner and dragged to an enemy's stronghold. "My fearless expression is my true war paint." Eri wondered briefly if any of the red paint she put on her face this morning was still in place. Probably not. Now that she was alone, she couldn't stop shaking in a way there was nothing to do with the cold. She heard stories of the things the enemy did to capture soldiers. "I don't want to die." Eri could hear the muffled footsteps approaching. The two guards sitting outside heard them as well. "Who goes there?" one of them called out. "Relax," the other man said. "It's just Illa." The man who'd spoken first didn't seem to relax one bit. "What are you doing here, Illa, and who's your friend?" "Hey, Jin," a female voice greeted. "Sokka here is from the Water Tribes, and he was curious to see how we here in the Earth Kingdom handle prisoners. Apparently the people of the water have had pretty unsuccessful experience with it, because their prisons and chains are made of ice." Both guards and the girl laughed quietly while young man's voice tried to defend his people's customs. "How are we supposed to know that they would melt?" I don't know, kiddo. Our orders were not to let anyone in here tonight, the first guard said, though he was obviously considering it. Come on, the other guard pinched in. Isn't our duty for our allies to show them how it's done? The other man must have agreed, since a moment later, the two people walked into the room, closing the wooden door behind them. The new arrivals were a girl wearing Earth Kingdom clothes and a boy in Water Tribe colors. They were young, even younger than Aerie herself, and she was 21. The kids exchanged glances, apparently trying to determine whether the man outside would hear them. Since the guards were making a loud conversation, the two kids started whispering to each other. "This is your great plan?" the boy asked incredulously. "What? I got us in, didn't I?" the girl answered. "Yeah, but how do we get out of here with those two guards still outside?" "Well, I didn't hear you suggesting a better plan." "Are you kidding me? How about you, being an earthbender and all, dig a tunnel to this cave and get her out of here through a tunnel, and no one would even know we were here? If you can dig a secret tunnel, then now would be a good time to do so." "Wait, what? Are you saying you didn't know how to do that? I thought making tunnels was Earthbending 101. The boy scratched his head. "Well, it isn't," the girl sighed. "Moving rocks is. Tunnels require more planning and power. I already told you, girls aren't generally taught how to fight. And my family isn't so wealthy they could have sent me to an academy to give me a private tutor. I know how to clear a few rocks from fields or how to dig a ditch, but almost all the fighting moves I know I've learned from joining the militia. I could try to dig a tunnel, but even if I succeeded, it would be loud. Someone would figure out something was going up a lot faster than I could dig." Aerie tried to look tough, but she couldn't help but getting curious and even optimistic. Did he say that they were here to rescue her? The boy nodded to the girl. "Okay, back to your plan. What happens next?" The boy smiled encouragingly despite his obvious worry. The girl smiled, lifting her wrist and pointing to a green stone bracelet on it. "Here's one trick I know most earthbenders don't. My grandmother was the only other bender in our family, and taught it to me. She wanted me to be able to protect myself." As the girl spoke, she moved her fingers and a small but sharp stone spike formed, still attached to the bracelet. "It's a hidden knife disguised as jewelry," Aerie thought. "Great," the boy said, sounding less than confident. "But since we don't want to kill her, how does this help? This isn't just a weapon. I can shape it to fit the lock, making it a universal key. All we have to do now is get her on board with the plan," the girl said and nodded toward Aerie. Both kids turned to look at her. Aerie had no idea what game they were playing or if she could trust them, but she feared she had no other choice in the matter. She had told her captors that her squad would come and rescue her, but in reality, her last assignment had been so poorly planned that she knew there was little hope she'd be rescued in time. Aerie's team was far from here. They might not even know she'd been captured. Even if they did come looking, they would not get here in time. Aerie doubted the situation could get any worse, so she nodded. "Run!" Sokka shouted, and pushed the Fire Nation woman in the back to emphasize his words. Sokka could barely believe he was staging a prison break to help the Fire Nation. It was too late for second thoughts, though. The alarm had been given and they would soon have the whole camp running after them. "Would have never guessed this morning I'd be doing this tonight," Sokka told Illa, trying not to pant too heavily. "Shut up and run!" The earthbender panted back, but there was a hint of a smile on her lips. No matter how serious the situation gets, a little humor never hurts, Sokka thought to himself. The Fire Nation woman wasn't a bender, and she had asked to be given something to protect herself with, but Sokka and Illa had been less than enthusiastic about trusting an enemy with anything such as a pocket knife, so that hadn't happened. Illa had tried to distract the guards while Sokka and Illa snuck out, but after that had failed, they had opted out for Plan B, running really fast. Good thing she isn't wearing standard Fire Nation uniform, Sokka thought, looking at their prisoner. She'll run much faster in those lightweight leather armor. The night sky was beginning to clear as the trio ran through the forest. Sokka tried to look around for a place to hide. "We got a good head start, but we can't run forever. We have to hide and wait until they pass us." A rock wall shot up from the ground only a few meters ahead of him. Sokka and Illa managed to stop themselves before running into the wall, but the Fire Nation soldier wasn't so lucky. She smacked right into the wall with a thump. "Oh, shit." Militia guys are much closer behind us than I thought. I don't like these odds. I've got to think of something, and fast. The trio started running in a new direction, but it too soon was blocked with earthbending. The Fire Nation woman switched to offensive. In lack of better weapons, she picked up a few rocks on the ground and started throwing them with uncanny precision. Wow, was all Sokka could say. You think that's something? If I had a bow and enough arrows, I could take all these guys down, the woman muttered under her breath, more to her than to Sokka. Ella, too, turned to scan their pursuers. After finding the person she was looking for, she threw 3 rocks with her bending toward him. The man, an older bender, blocked the rocks with an earth wall and retaliated with a spike to Ella's side. Sokka could hear a bone-crunching snap as the earth spike hit Ella's right hand. The girl screamed and fell to her knees. Sokka ran to protect her. 10 or so guys had surrounded them. The Fire Nation woman and her rocks were the last thing keeping them at bay. Now what? Sokka tried to frantically think of a way out. Damn, I wish Aang, Katara, and Appa were here. The militia guys did not look like they would listen to reason. Before Sokka had any time to say anything, something bright fell from the sky between the trio and their attackers. As it hit the ground, it exploded in a fiery blaze, lighting the scene for a moment. What the? By the time Sokka's eyes had adjusted to the sudden change in lighting, a long black creature had landed before them, standing on the scorched earth. It coiled and curled and opened its mouth, letting out a fearsome growl. Oh, spirits, now we're dead. Zuko tried to look as big and menacing as he could. He had noticed the commotion on the ground, but had initially decided not to interfere, since he didn't know who the people running were or what they had done to get an angry mob to chase them. After flying closer for a better look, he noticed that one of the people were pursuing was a Yu-Yan archer. He assumed that they were all Fire Nation soldiers, despite their clothing, but the earth-bending duel earlier had proven him wrong. The more Zuko learned of the situation, the less any of it made sense. One of the runners even looked like Sokka, the Water Tribe boy traveling with the Avatar, and Zuko had no idea how he fit into any of this. The only thing Zuko knew for sure was that there were 3 people running from an Earth Kingdom mob, and they were in desperate need of help, but no help was coming. None but Zuko. Breathing a breath of fire, more at the men to get them to back off than to take them down. There were too many of them. If he had to fight his way out of the situation, Zuko wasn't sure what the outcome would be. Young dragons weren't nearly as powerful as the old ones had been, and he was still trying to get used to his new body. The odds really weren't on his side. I should have just minded my own business, but what's done is done. Good thing fighting wasn't the only option. Zuko turned to look at the 3 shocked youngsters behind him. He glided toward them and grabbed the Yu-Yan in one paw and the 2 teenagers in the other. Zuko was a small dragon, but luckily the kids weren't too big themselves. Before the Earthbenders could get over the initial shock and get any wild ideas about trapping Zuko's paws to the ground, he opened his wings and took off. The black dragon and his newfound captives disappeared in the dark morning sky.